Hello, my name is Jim. This is my podcast, The Bloody Vegans. You're very welcome to it. Each week I'll be travelling ever deeper into the world of veganism, discovering along the way a multitude of viewpoints from the political and ethical to the practical. I'll be doing this through a series of conversations, each aiming to further illuminate my understanding and hopefully yours of all things vegan. And this week is no different. I say weekly and so on and so forth. I appreciate the last few weeks, if not month or so, have been a little bit sporadic. The school holidays have been challenging, very enjoyable obviously, but from the point of view of producing a podcast on a weekly basis, challenging, so we say. Hopefully things will improve from here on in. Let's hope so. So this week I was delighted to be joined by Chef Danielle Maupertuis. I think I could have said that right. There's chances I've said that wrong. But Chef Danielle is an incredible vegan pastry chef. Classically trained, but has adapted a whole host of recipes to be veganized, and in her way is helping blaze a trail really in the world of high-end pastry chefs by veganizing things but also bringing unique recipes to that world, and he's also doing courses, books, afternoon tea clubs, all kinds of different things, presenting kind of classics but in a vegan way, and also, like I say, unique recipes from a vegan pastry chef's perspective. So we're going to hear from Chef Danielle in just a moment. So I should just tell you before we dive into the episode, if you want to find out a little bit more about Chef Danielle, head to freefromdesserts.com. You can find all sorts of things there. You can find links to her books, her courses, so on and so forth. Can't speak. It's all on that website, freefromdesserts.com. And as always, this episode is brought to you by Bloody Vegans Productions, a podcast production agency founded by myself. You can find out more at bloodyvegansproductions.com. So if you are looking to start your own podcast, or in fact you have one and need some help with editing, making clips, all the kind of stuff that you see associated with podcast, then head to bloodyvegansproductions.com. I think that's it. That's it in terms of the admin. So without further ado, here is a conversation between me and Chef Danielle.
Two things. First of all, I'm an executive pastry chef. I worked in 5-star hotels in the UK and abroad. And let's say until quite recently, when we had a guest coming over in the hotel for an afternoon tea or lunch, whatever, saying, I'm vegan, so what do you have to propose? Oh, we were there. Apart from a fruit salad or a fruit sorbet, no, not too many choices. Industry, expensive, disappointed. So it was frustrated for the guest and for myself because I love pastry. So I decided to create my own range of vegan desserts based upon taste and presentation. This is the first thing. The second thing is I was very concerned with cruelty towards animals, and when a couple of years ago I offered my grandson a subscription to the Worldwide Fund. He adopted a jaguar in Colombia, which was an animal in danger, and so it started from there. So together we went to Edinburgh to visit this zoo, where they only have species in danger. So and we go like this. So I would say initially it was a concern about animals, and now of course it has slowly going towards health concern as well.
Yeah. So just to sort of take me back into the world of being a pastry chef, from your experience as an executive pastry chef, when you were learning, it sounds like it wasn't the case, but I take it there was no mention of veganism or plant-based recipes or that kind of thing. Was your training very much meat and dairy heavy, or dairy heavy in the case of desserts, obviously?
We followed the classical pastry, meaning mainly gelatin from pork. Well, of course, we had butter, eggs, milk, but we a couple of years ago had not even an idea about what a vegan baking could include. Nothing. So we just followed the classical recipes.
And when you decided to make this switch, how difficult was it for you to kind of almost relearn your trade?
Well, first of all, in my career, most of the time I learn things by myself. And I would say, the fact that I have a quite strong pastry background helped me a lot to veganize, into brackets, the basic recipes. Honestly, apart from a few desserts like maybe the choux pastry or creme brulee, which are basically involving eggs, the other things are not that complicated. I go now even for gluten-free desserts, always insisting on the fact they have to be easy to make, look nice, and taste fantastic. So this is my challenge, but it wasn't that difficult. It's just adapting, trying. We have now, compared to 2 or 3 years ago, a lot of ingredients, very, very helpful. They make our life much easier. For instance, you now have a plant-based double cream. This means that you can whip it. Well, and for a dessert, whipped cream is really the key. I mean, before we were struggling with a single oat cream, a single soya cream, but let's say now our work is much easier.
Yeah. Well, when you started out, then, before some of those technical kind of advancements, if you like, in the world of plant-based food, what were the sort of challenges that you would have had to overcome? With, say, something like double cream, and you were, like you say, you were working with single cream. How did you begin before the kind of double cream substitute came in to kind of match double cream? Yeah.
No, one thing when I started is I would say the classical hotel industry, hospitality, was not, maybe is still not too positive towards vegan baking or vegan cooking. I remember my executive chef, when I made a vegan dessert in this 5-star hotel, I showed him and I said, "Chef, I made a new vegan dessert." He did not even taste. After that, I changed the policy. I said, "Chef, I made a new dessert. Please, could you taste?" Not bad. And then I said afterwards, "Well, by the way, it's vegan." So quite negative attitude of the chefs towards vegan baking. For instance, I joined a Facebook group called Michelin Stars. And I posted quite some nice photos because I insist on my fine dining touch in a vegan pastry. The photos were very nice, and I presented my work. I said, "I'm a vegan pastry chef, 2222. The comments, you cannot even imagine how negative. Recently, last year, fuck the vegans, sorry, you can cut this. I mean, it was incredible. So you still have a very negative attitude.
Yeah.
And then coming back to your questions, we adapted the recipe accordingly to, let's say, the available ingredients. For instance, when we had to make a mousse, usually you put some whipped double cream to make it light. So we used aquafaba instead, which is this vegan egg white that we whisked to make it lighter and things like this.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm really interested in that reaction that you mentioned from, your executive chef at the time, and you kind of overcoming that challenge by sort of saying to them, well, this is a new dessert rather than this is a new vegan dessert. I'm just interested in the kind of like the skepticism that you faced across the industry. How long, and did you manage to convince people that actually there is another way in that world?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure they are still convinced, but they now, I think, have kind of a pressure, feel like kind of oppression, because they cannot ignore veganism anymore. This is not possible. So they have somehow to jump into the movement. So this is why you see some very famous chefs presenting vegan recipes. I'm not sure they are vegan, but this is another story. It take me quite some time, but I try to involve non-vegan audiences in my work and my presentations. If you want to go to vegan baking or vegan cooking, it needs some work. You need time to experiment, to try. And let's say, let's be honest. When you work in a kitchen in a hotel, for instance, trust me, you are busy from morning till evening, and you don't have time enough to create and to experiment new desserts. For instance, myself, I couldn't. I had no time. I started in the morning, the lunch, the afternoon tea, the events, the VIPs, the weddings, the dinner. No time. This is why I decided to stop and to spend more time for new desserts. So there is this skepticism, and of course a lack of time. This is true.
Obviously, you've got an incredible background and experience in the world of being a pastry chef and so on, and from 5-star restaurants and hotels, and the incredible background. My as a layman who doesn't know the first thing really about baking, how difficult is being a pastry chef? How difficult is it to do some of the recipes that you've created?
It's I would say it is not always that difficult that you imagine. And my main concern is to convince people, chefs, not chefs, to improve your self-confidence. This is the main point. Even for a chef, when he sees ingredients he doesn't know, let's say, for instance, this agar powder that replaces gelatin, how much do I have to put, how does it set, etc. It is a question of self-confidence. And I insist in my afternoon teas, in my demos, in my courses, this is the main thing. It's not, you follow the recipe. If the recipe is okay, you just have the steps. You need a scale, an oven, and that's it. But you need self-confidence, because so many times I hear, I'm afraid, I'm so bad in baking. No, it's really easy.
Yeah, confidence is the key. Talking of confidence and instilling confidence, you as you've mentioned just there, you touched upon, you host courses for folks. Tell us a little bit about how that came about and what those kind of courses are and who they're for.
I give different courses. I started a couple of years ago with the Vegetarian Society Cookery School, and there we have 2 programs. One for, let's say, the amateurs, so they just spend one day making a vegan dessert. They tasting at the end of the session, they having fun. And then there is another course for chefs. It's part of a 5 days training, so they got a certificate afterwards, and there we develop and show recipes, but we also insist, of course, the fine dining touch. Secondly, how a chef should organize himself at work, what we call in the hotel words mise en place. So try to make things in advance, to organize yourself. If you have an event, 200 people, don't start the last minute. And then also when you have one recipe for a chef, because the most important thing for a chef is the time, try to present different versions of this recipe. If you make a cheesecake, you're going to make a buffet version, you're going to make an afternoon tea version, you see. So it's quite interesting. And then I give demos and tasting in my vegan afternoon tea clubs. So it's not only a tasting, a gathering around a cup of tea and some desserts and savories, but I also try to show easily how to make a sweet pastry, how to make a chocolate mousse, because I really would like the people to be convinced that baking is d'abord something fantastic, and that it's not difficult. Voilà. And then demos in vegan shows, and also the RHS flower shows, because plant-based should be really related to the RHS story. Et voilà. And I really love to share this passion and to convince people. Et voilà.
That's amazing. The kind of folks who do the courses with you and so on, are they typically vegan folks, or do you have a spread of folks joining those courses?
I have a spread. Some people are vegan, some, I would say half-half, maybe 50-50. Some people mostly are vegetarian, and they would like to see how it goes to make a further step into veganism. Yeah, I would say half-half. And regarding the chef, for instance, or you have chefs working, let's say in a classical hotel, and they need, or they feel the need of vegan options in their menus. Or you have chefs who decided to go one step further and to go for a totally vegan restaurant. For instance, there was a restaurant in Jersey. This is 100% vegan. It depends.
Incredible. Yeah. That's amazing that it's 50-50.
Yeah.
And that feels like a real sort of form of activism almost, that you're helping those folks come along that journey who perhaps weren't there, for their own personal ethics and so on, but it's helping them take that one step further. That to me is like an amazing achievement to have a 50-50 kind of course. And you mentioned that obviously they're motivated in a way by seeing that they can see that there's a change coming in that world, and they need to adapt their offering if they're chefs and so on. Do you see a world where we are predominantly plant-based in the kind of world of high-end restaurants and so on? Do you think that is achievable?
Yeah.
Is that something that we could get to?
Yeah, I think so. Because I'm convinced that the plant-based, I'm talking for the pastry, of course, the plant-based pastry doesn't have anything to invite to the classical pastry. We make fantastic desserts, we adapt, we create unique desserts, exploring the flowers, the plants, the herbs in pastry. This is something new, really, really exciting. And for instance, my aim is when we have a wedding, most of the time you propose, you have a list of the guests, you have 10 vegans, you have 10 vegetarians, 10 gluten-free. My challenge is, maybe in a couple of years, to have a vegan dessert so good that, one, you don't see the difference with the classical one, and secondly, this can be suitable for everybody. We don't have to make these distinctions anymore. And if you, for instance, you take my opera cake, it's a classical French dessert that I revisited. I made it more exotic, so with passion fruit, with raspberry, with pistachios. Trust me, if you taste it, you can certainly present it as a dessert for a wedding, and everybody will appreciate. So I'm very positive and optimistic about this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's awesome to hear. It really is. I'm interested there. You mentioned obviously it's a class, like something like an opera cake is a very classical kind of recipe, and you've updated it and brought it to kind of life, and not only as a vegan dish but also with this kind of more exotic twist and so on. Like, how much is your work focused in the traditional and classical and like adaptation versus how much is focused in the kind of the world of making unique things and bringing newness to the world of being a pastry chef?
I would say that most of the classical pastry to be veganized, the work has been done. We have been through the classical English desserts, for instance, in my cookbook, Vegans Deserve Better Than a Fruit Salad, there is a whole chapter about giving a modern vegan, of course, twist to the classical desserts. The crumble, the eaten mess, the bread and butter pudding. The most important part has been done. We found the sponges, the creams, the vegan chocolates are excellent, and so now I'm more concentrated on or focused on exploring the plant-based new tastes. For instance, I received a pine tree syrup, a pine tree balsamic cream from a company south of France. This is absolutely fantastic, and I'm going to use it for Christmas. So I'm exploring now the new taste. Well, of course, we're talking a lot about black sesame paste. It's a little bit trendy, but so much to explore. So I'd say the basics have been done. We are okay now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Look, I'd love to move on to the book, if that's okay. First of all, I love the title. Fantastic title, Vegans Deserve Better Than a Fruit Salad. Can you tell us a little bit about your kind of inspiration for wanting to become an author in this space, and then tell us a little bit about the book itself?
As soon as I decided to create my own range of vegan desserts, I realized that this was when I was maybe 3 years ago, something like this. The vegan pastry literature, if I may say, was quite poor, and I'm sorry to say, most of the times very, very amateur. For instance, you had a recipe of a crème brûlée with a coconut cream. I'm sorry, this is not a crème brûlée. So it was not very serious, not very professional, a little bit disappointing. I was frustrated. So very quickly, the idea or the need of a cookbook became quite obvious. So I started to try the recipes, to write the recipes, and then, to have this little introduction that makes it funny, because English is not my mother language. This was a challenge, but it was at the end of the day, it was funny, and it was my own style of presenting my cakes. Et voilà. So I decided to focus on the basics. So there is an important chapter about the creams, about how to temper chocolate easily, the sponges, and I also tried to cover the main fields of pastry, Christmas, Halloween, Easter, the petit four, the chocolates, the English desserts, the continental desserts, the chocolate dessert, the cheesecakes. So you have quite a few things to learn in it.
What's the reaction been like? How are folks appreciating the book?
Very nice, very nice. And I had the chance to work with a fantastic photographer. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention his name.
By all means.
His name is Darren Jenkins, and these photos are so appealing and attractive that it's really part of the success of the book. And for my second book called Veganissimo, I work with him aussi. It's going to be based mainly upon parties and afternoon teas. So this helped me, but the book was had a very, very good feedback.
What were the technical challenges of making a book like this one or the new one, Veganissimo?
The time.
In terms of, it's a different skill writing recipes for yourself that need to be replicable in a professional environment versus writing them for whoever may pick up the book. What was that like as a sort of technical challenge?
Not really. Let's say, but first of all, the first, let's say, 3 months were challenging because I wasn't used to write recipes in English, and so I had to get used to the technical terms. Well, technical is maybe it may be exaggerated, but let's say pour the cream. I had to learn all these things. It took me a couple of months. Once you have this, most of the time, the main and the same sentences are coming back, and after, let's say, a couple of months. For instance, nowadays it's very easy for me and very quick to write a recipe. I'm still struggling for this funny introduction, but writing a recipe now for me is okay. So I would say it was an effort for the first 3-6 months, the way you write a recipe, you think about the people who are gonna read it. I'm not talking about, the chefs will read it, but what I have in mind is you, my neighbor, so we have to make it simple and we have to make it precise, because many recipes, let's say quite some recipes, when you try them, you say, it doesn't work, something is wrong. It has to be precise. Voila, no other secret.
Yeah, thinking about that, that's obviously like a key component, that precision of taking the steps in the order that they're supposed to be in the correct way, and so on and so forth. If you had some advice for people just starting out, other than obviously go out and buy your book, I think that's probably the first bit of advice. But for folks starting out, what's the kind of key things that they need to take into account when they're starting out in the world of, wanting to maybe become a pastry chef, or maybe just wanting to improve their skills?
Well, as I said, it's easy. But first you need quite a few tools, but you don't have to, don't think you need an endless list of tools. You have the basics, which is just a scale. This is the most important, a whisk, a knife, maybe some mats to bake, of course, a baking tray and an oven. I said even a roller pin. When I started, can you imagine that I didn't have a roller pin? I used an empty bottle of wine. So it's very easy, very simple. You don't have to go through very sophisticated, very expensive tools. You just need the basic ones. Let's make it simple. The ingredients, you have to be careful to see what kind of vegan ingredients you buy. Always read the labels. This is very important. Try to avoid, because most of the time there is no reason, these expensive, let's say, vegan substitutes. I see, for instance, so many vegan egg replacer with £3 for 200 grams. We don't need this. We have a list of natural products, a banana, an avocado, flax seeds that replace the eggs. So keep it simple in your ingredients. When you have your tools, when you have the ingredients you trust, you start a recipe and you try. Be ready to make a few mistakes, because if I'm telling you, I was talking about this Christmas desserts I'm going to create with a pine tree syrup for Christmas. Believe me, never, until now, I never succeeded making a nice recipe in one go. I have to make and make and make again. So still, it's part of the game. You have to be ready. You have to be patient, and you will see, when I try a new dessert, it always starts from nothing. I just have an idea. So, of course, the first try is catastrophe. And then I said, oh, and I do again, and I do again. You have to be ready for this. And you're going to see the improvement. And once you are happy with the result, you take some notes, and that's it. And then you are very happy.
I think that's a fantastic tip, is being persistent. Keep trying. I think that's absolutely key. Like, if I just think back to some of my experiences, often I've tried something maybe once and then thought, oh well, I can't. I'm not very good at that. Perhaps I shouldn't try and cook that again. No. Well, actually, just keep going. I think that's such a great bit of advice. If there was a recipe that stands out for you that it would be a great one for maybe a beginner or somebody who's starting out. Is there one that sort of jumps to mind, maybe from one of the books, that you think this is where I would advise people to start?
Well, it's very difficult to choose. I would say, let's say an eaten mess is so easy. You have 3 ingredients. You have the egg white substitute, let's say. Let's say a vegan meringue. You have the strawberries, and you have the cream. So now, if you want to make our life easy, you have this double cream that you can whip. Strawberries, nothing to say. And about the vegan meringue, most of the people are now familiar, or at least heard about this substitute called aquafaba. So this is the water of a chickpea can that you reduce a little bit, and then you whisk like a classical meringue. You take some unrefined golden caster sugar, and you have your eaten mess. It's very easy, very easy. A cheesecake is so easy. In my courses for beginners, I give, for instance, a mango and passion fruit cheesecake. What is a cheesecake? It's a vegan cream cheese, and now we have very good alternatives. A flavor, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of cream, just to soften the taste, and a thickener that replaces the gelatin that we call agar powder. So you just mix the powder with your liquid you bring to the boil. You mix everything together. It's 5 minutes, and there is nothing easier than that. Think about your Christmas party. You make a red fruit cheesecake. Magnifique. Centerpiece. Well, I stop.
You've definitely inspired me, Danielle.
Yes.
I want to pick up a copy of your book straight away. For
folks who want baking.
I'm absolutely going to. You've inspired me, like I say. Where would folks go about picking up a copy of the book and the new book? When can we expect that one?
I have too many things going on for the moment, so I'm a little bit behind. So if I would say next year, but you will need some patience. But I regularly present my afternoon tea, which is part of the book, so you know already what some contents. The Christmas is ready, the Halloween is ready, the Mother's Day is ready, the baby shower is ready, and they are really fantastic. And so I still have to go for Easter and maybe something for the States. That's it. Next year, hopefully.
Incredible. And vegans deserve better than a fruit salad. Where can we pick up a copy of that?
You can go to my website, www.freefromdesserts.com/books. And second choice, if you have any issue, Amazon, of course. But I'm not here to promote Amazon. I'm not at all.
Yeah, or ask your local book stockist, I guess, as well, to get them to get a copy in. That would be a great one. So, yeah, Danielle, thank you so much. I'll make sure there's links in the show notes to your website.
Do you have everything?
So folks can
and
go
Instagram?
ahead, find out more.
Yeah. Do you have the Instagram?
And Instagram too, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, super. Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure sharing my passion for vegan pastry with you and with all our followers. Thank you very much.
Oh, no, thank you, Danielle. Thanks for inspiring us all to get back in the kitchen.
Thank you. See you soon, I hope. Okay. Bye-bye.